Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're diving deep into AWS security today,
Oh, yeah.
specifically the AWS Well-Architected Framework's security pillar.
Okay.
We're going to be looking at an AWS white paper
Yeah.
from July 2018
Right.
that talks about how to design, deliver, and maintain secure AWS environments.
It's a great one.
Yeah, and it can be a little bit of a dense read for some people.
It can be.
So we're hoping to break it down into the most important nuggets.
Yeah.
So whether you're a tech pro or just starting out with AWS,
Yeah.
you'll get a lot out of this.
Absolutely.
Now, the well-architected framework actually has 5 pillars:
It does.
operational excellence, security, reliability, performance efficiency, and cost optimization.
Right.
Today, we're focusing on the security pillar,
Yeah.
and that dives into 5 key areas of cloud security: identity and access management, detective controls, infrastructure protection, data protection, and incident response.
Okay.
So we'll be covering a lot of ground. One of the key things to remember during this deep dive is the AWS shared responsibility model.
Yes. Very important.
It's a concept that AWS has where they clarify who is responsible for what when it comes to security.
Right. So it's not just all on you.
No,
Oh.
right? AWS handles the physical infrastructure, like the servers and data centers,
Yeah.
the hardware basically.
Yeah.
But
Right.
you're responsible for everything you build and run on top of that infrastructure.
Right.
So like your applications and your data and that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So it's a team effort.
It is.
And the good news is the cloud actually offers some cool advantages
Oh, for sure.
when it comes to security.
Way better than on-prem.
Yeah, you have better access to security data and more automation capabilities,
Absolutely.
which is super helpful.
Especially for incident response.
Right.
You know, you can imagine trying to track down a security issue in a physical data center.
Oh, gosh.
Talk about needle in a haystack.
Yeah. No thanks. I'll stick to the cloud.
Yeah, me too.
So let's dive into the first key area,
Go ahead.
identity and access management, or IAM.
IAM. Yeah.
This is all about controlling who gets access to your environment and what they can do once they're there.
Right. It's like having a strict bouncer at the door of your cloud.
I like that.
Yeah.
Your cloud club.
Yeah.
Okay, so the white paper actually makes a good analogy about protecting your AWS credentials.
Uh-huh.
It's like protecting the master key to your house.
Exactly.
You wouldn't hand that out to just anybody,
Definitely not.
would you?
No way.
The same goes for your AWS environment.
Right.
Now it all starts with the root user.
Yes.
This is the account you create when you first sign up with AWS. And it has
a lot of power.
It does root access.
Yeah.
It can do anything
Anything.
in your account,
In your AWS account.
but it's not something you want to use for everyday use
No, definitely not.
because it's very powerful.
Yeah.
So for everyday use, you're going to want to use
IAM.
IAM users and roles,
Yeah.
which we'll talk more about.
Yep.
With limited permissions.
Absolutely. So it's like having different keys for different doors
I like that.
instead of one master key for the entire house.
Right.
Yeah.
So not everybody has access to everything,
Exactly.
just what they need.
That's called the principle of least privilege.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's a key security concept.
And that minimizes the damage if something does happen.
If credentials are compromised,
Yeah.
it's like you don't want to give every single employee access to the company vault.
Right.
That would be bad.
That would be bad.
Yeah.
So we create these IAM users.
Yes.
We give them specific permissions. But what if we need to give temporary access?
That's a good question.
Like a contractor.
Yeah.
Do we create a whole new user for them?
So that's where temporary credentials come in.
Oh.
And federation.
Yeah.
Temporary credentials are basically like a guest pass
Okay.
that expires after a certain time.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
federation is like,
Okay.
using your driver's license to access multiple things
Oh,
instead of having a separate ID for every single thing.
okay. I see.
So you can use existing logins,
Good.
like from your company,
Uh-huh.
to access AWS.
So I don't have to create a ton of new accounts.
Exactly.
That's great.
Yeah.
So we've got this like good basic setup with IAM,
Yeah.
but we're also going to want to control what each user can do
Of course.
within the services.
Absolutely.
So it's not just about giving somebody a key to the house.
Right.
It's about what they can do in each room.
Exactly. It's about controlling their access within the house.
Yeah, and this is where fine-grained authorization comes in.
Uh-huh.
And we have IAM roles and policies to help us with this.
Yes, we do.
So what exactly are these roles and policies?
So IAM roles are like digital badges
Okay.
that grant specific permissions.
Okay.
And policies are like rules that define what actions are allowed.
So you can attach these policies to the role.
Exactly. You attach policies to the roles. And then you can create very granular policies.
Yes,
For
so.
example, you could create a policy that lets a developer upload code to an S3 bucket,
Okay.
but prevent them from deleting files.
I see.
So it's very specific.
That's great.
Yeah.
So even if they make a mistake,
Yeah.
they can't completely delete things
Yes,
that are really
you can.
important.
It's good to have guardrails in place,
Yes.
especially in the cloud,
As your cloud environment grows and you have more people.
especially with multiple users and resources.
And then what if you have multiple AWS accounts?
Oh, that's a good question.
How do you manage those?
That's where AWS Organizations comes in.
Okay.
It's like your trusty organizer for all of your accounts.
Instead of juggling a bunch of different accounts?
Yeah, instead of juggling logins for each account,
Okay.
you can manage them all from a central location.
Oh, they're so much better.
Yeah, it's much easier.
And less room for error.
Less room for error.
Okay. So AWS Organizations is really helpful for that.
Yeah.
But can you do more with it?
You can do a lot more.
Like what?
You can apply policies across your entire organization,
Yeah.
including security policies.
So that's helpful.
Very helpful.
So like multi-factor authentication
Exactly.
or restricting access to certain AWS services.
Yes, ensures consistent security across the board.
That's really great.
It is.
So we covered a lot with identity and access management.
We did.
Like we talked about protecting the root user credentials.
Right.
We talked about fine-grained authorization.
Yes.
And even AWS organizations.
Yeah.
So we've got a good start here
We do.
with securing our AWS environment.
Absolutely, but there's more.
But there's more to come.
Yeah,
This is like building a high-security fortress,
it is.
brick by brick.
Brick by brick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I'm ready to put on my detective hat now
Oh, yeah.
and talk about detective controls.
Okay.
It's all about monitoring and analyzing what's happening
Absolutely.
in our AWS environment to spot those suspicious activities
Right.
before they turn into a problem.
Yeah, it's like setting up security cameras and motion sensors around your house,
Oh, okay.
but for your cloud environment.
I like that.
Yeah.
So the first clue in a good detective case
Yeah.
is evidence.
It is.
And in the cloud world,
Yeah.
that evidence is logs.
It's logs.
And, thinking about logs
Yeah.
kind of gives me flashbacks
Oh,
to
yeah.
the olden days.
The bad old days.
Yeah, when you had to install agents
Right.
and configure appliances.
Network appliances.
Yeah, it felt like a never-ending game of whack-a-mole.
It really did.
But in the cloud,
In the cloud, it's much better.
things are a lot easier
Much easier.
when it comes to logging.
Yes.
Like a lot of it's handled for you.
Yeah, AWS handles the heavy lifting.
Okay, so for starters,
Yeah.
like getting information about our resources.
Yeah, like who created them,
Yeah.
when they were modified,
Right.
what they are.
Is that easy to do?
Oh, yeah, it's very easy.
Okay.
You can get all of that metadata directly from AWS.
So no more
No more spreadsheets.
spreadsheets. That's
Yeah.
great.
Thank goodness.
Okay, but what about actually capturing
Yeah,
and analyzing the logs themselves?
that's the important part.
Like, where do we start?
So think of AWS CloudTrail,
Okay.
like your security camera footage.
Okay.
It captures API activity
Oh, wow.
across your AWS account.
Okay.
So it tells you who did what, when, and from where.
So it's really detailed.
Very detailed.
Okay, so if somebody tries to spin up a bunch of unauthorized EC2 instances, like in the middle of the night when they're not supposed to,
Right.
CloudTrail will see that.
CloudTrail will catch them red-handed.
Okay, but it's not just limited to EC2?
No, it's not limited to EC2.
Okay.
It covers a ton of AWS services.
That's really good.
Yeah.
But it's only one piece of the puzzle,
Yes.
right?
It is.
What else is there?
Well, for network traffic, you have Amazon VPC flow logs.
Okay.
So these logs capture information about traffic
Uh-huh.
flowing within your VPC.
Oh, so like which instances are talking to each other?
Yeah, exactly. Which instances are talking to each other.
And what kind of data is being sent?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so we can see if somebody is trying to sneak data out of our database
Uh-huh.
or if there's any unusual communication patterns.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unusual patterns are a big red flag.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got CloudTrail.
We do?
We've got VPC flow logs.
Yeah.
What about like a central place
No.
to put all these logs?
It's Amazon CloudWatch logs.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's a central log repository.
It is. And it can collect logs from lots of places.
Yes.
CloudTrail, VPC flow logs,
Uh-huh.
and even your own applications.
They're not just like scattered about.
They're not just scattered all over the place.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what can we do with CloudWatch logs?
Well, it's not just a storage unit.
Okay.
You can do a lot with it.
Like what?
You can set up alerts,
Oh, that's good.
trigger automated actions based on logs, and even visualize your log data.
So it's more than just storing it.
It is.
Okay, that's good.
Can help you spot trends and anomalies.
Okay, so we've got a really good logging foundation here.
We do. It's very solid.
We've got CloudTrail, VPC Flow logs,
Yes.
and CloudWatch logs,
Yep.
but we're not done yet,
We're not.
right?
Right.
Because simply collecting and storing logs isn't enough.
It's not.
What else do we need to do?
We need to analyze them.
Analyze them.
Yeah.
Okay.
To get real insights.
It's like having a security camera,
Yeah.
but not actually looking at the footage.
Exactly. You need to analyze the footage to understand what's happening.
Okay.
You need to find those clues.
Yeah, because what good is a terabyte of log data
Right.
if we don't know what we're looking for?
Exactly.
It's overwhelming.
It can be overwhelming.
So how do we analyze this data?
Well, there are some great tools available.
Like what?
Amazon Athena and Amazon GuardDuty.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's Athena?
Athena lets you query your logs
Okay.
using SQL.
Oh, okay. So it's familiar.
Very familiar for anyone who's worked with databases.
So if we want to search for like
Well,
failed login attempts from a specific IP address,
exactly.
we can write a quick query.
Yeah, a simple query.
Okay. What about GuardDuty?
So GuardDuty is like having a 247 security analyst
Oh, wow.
constantly monitoring your logs.
Okay.
It uses machine learning
Wow.
to analyze your CloudTrail logs,
Uh-huh.
VPC flow logs, and DNS logs.
Right.
And it looks for threats.
So it's like an extra set of eyes
It is.
constantly scanning for trouble.
Yes, it's constantly looking for those patterns and anomalies.
Okay. So we got a system for capturing logs and powerful tools for analyzing them.
Yep.
But what happens when GuardDuty actually finds something suspicious?
That's a great question.
What do we do?
Well, you need to take action.
We can't just sit there and stare at the alert.
No, definitely not.
We need a plan.
You need a plan of action.
Okay.
And that's where integrating your detective controls with notifications and automated workflows comes in.
Okay, so it's not enough to just see the problem.
Right. You need to act on it.
What does that look like?
Okay, so imagine GuardDuty detects a suspicious IP address
Okay.
trying to access your S3 buckets.
Right.
It's not going to just log that event.
Oh, okay.
It's going to send an alert.
To like the security team.
Exactly to your security team through email or a messaging system.
So we get a heads up.
You get a heads up right away.
That's good.
Yeah.
But it's not just about sending notifications.
No.
Right.
Right.
We could also automate responses.
Absolutely.
How do we do that?
So you can use Amazon CloudWatch events
Okay.
and AWS config.
Okay.
CloudWatch events is like your rule engine.
Okay.
You define rules and it triggers actions.
Okay, so if CloudTrail logs a specific API call
Yeah.
or GuardDuty detects a threat,
Uh-huh.
CloudWatch events can do something about it.
It can. It can do a lot of things.
Like what?
Send notifications,
Uh-huh.
trigger Lambda functions,
Okay.
update infrastructure.
That's great.
Yeah. It's really powerful.
So it can take action.
It can
Automatic.
automatically.
Okay, what about AWS config?
So AWS config is like your configuration watchdog.
Okay.
It monitors your AWS resources for any changes.
Oh, okay.
And you can set rules for those changes too.
So if someone modifies a security group
Yeah.
or opens a port to the public internet,
Uh-huh.
AWS config will tell us.
It'll tell you right away.
It's like an alarm system.
It is.
That's great.
Yeah. It can also revert changes or trigger a remediation process.
Oh, wow. So it's not just about
It's not just about detection.
detecting the problem.
Yeah.
It can actually fix things.
It can try to fix things.
That's really great.
It is.
And then we also have Amazon Inspector,
Oh, yes. Amazon Inspect.
which we talked about earlier a little bit,
Yeah.
which helps find vulnerabilities
Yes. Security vulnerability.
in our applications and operating system.
Yeah. It's like a code checkup.
Yeah.
But automated.
Okay. So it can identify weaknesses
Yes.
and potential security holes.
Exactly.
Okay. And we can integrate it into our CI/CD pipeline.
You can.
So it can spot those vulnerabilities early.
Yeah, before they make it into production.
So we're shifting security left.
You are.
That's what they call it.
Yeah, shifting left.
Okay, so we've covered a lot with detective controls.
A lot.
We've got a multi-layered system for detecting and responding to security threats.
We do.
We've got logs, analysis tools, notifications, automated actions, vulnerability scanning,
Yep. It's a very robust system.
and it's all managed through AWS,
Yeah, AWS makes it really easy.
which is nice.
Very nice.
We love that.
Yeah.
So we've got a really good system for monitoring and responding,
Uh-huh.
but there's another layer we need to add to our security fortress.
Yes, there is.
What is it?
It's the crown jewels of your cloud kingdom with
Okay.
your data.
Data.
Yeah.
Data protection.
Yeah. The crown jewels.
We need to make sure our data is protected.
Absolutely.
Whether it's just sitting in storage or moving across the network.
It's super important.
So where do we even begin?
Well, the first step is understanding what we have and where it lives.
Okay.
That's where data classification comes in.
Data classification.
Yeah, think of it like organizing your belongings.
Okay.
Some things are valuable and need to be locked away,
Right.
while others can be left out in the open.
Okay, so we're talking about categorizing our data based on its sensitivity level.
Exactly.
So we might have public data, like blog posts, internal data, like employee handbooks, and highly confidential data, like customer financial information.
Exactly.
Okay, so once we know what we have and where it is,
Yeah.
then we can start applying the right security controls.
Right, because not everything needs the same level of protection.
Makes sense. So what are some of the key techniques for protecting data in AWS?
Well, encryption is a big one.
Encryption.
Yeah, it's like putting your data in a locked box that only those with the key can open.
So even if someone steals the box, they can't see what's inside.
Not without the key.
Okay, and AWS has a service to help us with this.
They do. It's called Key Management Service, or KMS.
KMS. Okay.
Think of it like a secure vault for your keys.
So AWS is handling the keys for us.
Exactly. They manage the keys.
And many AWS services integrate with KMS.
They do.
To make it super easy to encrypt our data.
Yeah, like you can encrypt S3 buckets,
Okay.
EBS volumes, RDS databases, all sorts of things.
So our data is protected when it's at rest.
Yeah, when it's just sitting there.
But what about when our data is on the move?
That's data in transit.
Data in transit.
We need to protect that too.
So how do we protect it in transit?
Well, we need to use secure protocols.
Like what?
HTTPS and TLS.
Okay.
It's like using an armored car to transport valuables.
So we're keeping our data safe as it travels.
Yeah, whether it's over the internet or between our systems.
And AWS makes it easy to implement these protocols.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
They have services like Elastic Load Balancing, Amazon CloudFront, AWS Certificate Manager.
They all make secure communication a breeze.
So our data is protected.
Yep.
No matter where it is.
Whether it's at rest or in transit.
But what happens if something goes wrong?
That's a good question.
Like a drive fails.
Yeah.
Or a system crashes. Or somebody gets through our defenses.
It happens.
And our data is lost.
That's where data backup, replication, and recovery come in.
Okay, so that's like our insurance policy.
Exactly.
Against data loss.
It's critical.
So data backups are important no matter what.
Everyone should be doing backups.
But how does AWS make that easier?
Well, they have really durable storage services.
Okay.
Like Amazon S3.
Okay.
It's designed for 11 nines of durability.
11 nines.
Yeah, it's very durable.
So we don't have to worry about storage failures.
Not really.
That's great.
And S3 also has versioning.
Okay.
So you can keep multiple versions of your files.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, and cross-region replication.
So our data is copied to another region.
Yeah, automatically.
So even if an entire region goes down,
you're still protected.
Our data is safe.
Safe and sound.
And what about databases?
Oh, yeah. Amazon RDS.
RDI.
It offers automated backups.
Okay.
And point-in-time recovery.
Point-in-time recovery.
You can restore your database to a specific moment.
So we can rewind if something happens?
Yeah. It's like a time machine for your database.
That's amazing.
It's a lifesaver sometimes.
But where do we actually store all these backups?
That's important.
Do we just keep them in the same AWS account?
It's best practice to store them in a separate account.
A separate account?
Yeah, with different credentials.
Okay, so even if our main account is compromised, the backups are still safe.
Safe and sound.
It's like another layer of protection.
Yeah. Exactly. Layers are important.
And we also need a plan for data recovery.
Absolutely.
Like an escape route.
Yeah. In case of a fire.
So we need to know how to access those backups quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, and which data needs to be restored first.
And we need to practice.
Practice makes perfect.
That's right.
You don't want to wait until a disaster to figure it out.
Okay, so we've talked about data classification, encryption, backups, and data recovery.
Yep. It's a lot.
It sounds like we've got a pretty good handle on data protection.
I think so.
But even with all these precautions,
yeah,
sometimes incidents still happen.
They do.
Systems can fail.
Right.
People make mistakes. And sometimes bad guys get in.
It's the reality.
So what happens when we have a security incident?
That's where incident response comes in.
Incident response.
Yeah, it's our plan for dealing with those inevitable security events.
So it's like having a fire drill.
Exactly.
You don't want to wait until there's a fire to figure out what to do.
That's right. You need a plan.
So what's involved in a good incident response plan?
First, You need a way to identify and report security events.
Okay.
Everyone needs to know who to contact.
All right, so there's no confusion.